somebody I kind of trust said that they asked you to send in VP vetting papers, and you said, no, the list would be too long. Is that true? It is true.
Yeah.
Why didn't you consider? I mean, you ended out there campaigning with their advisor.
Well, the second part of that, my response was, I'm not very good as the number two person. And so the last thing we need is me telling Kamala, the president, that, no, that's a dumb idea, right?
Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. Delighted to finally welcome an entrepreneur and investor, film producer, former owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Boo. He just wrapped the final season of Shark Tank. It's Mark Cuban. How you doing, man?
Good, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, with the obvious caveats applying. The Nuggets aren't in the finals tonight. Well, I guess we're taping this on Thursday, so the finals might be over by the time people hear this tomorrow afternoon. And, the world has gone mad, but my life's good. How about you?
Same, right? I mean, the Mavs aren't in the finals. Nothing else would matter, right? What else matters?
I've got so much I want to pick your brain on in limited time, so we'll just try to move through it all. I guess since we're doing the Never Trumper podcast, I kind of want to start with the Trump report card from you, because you try to be. I mean, you were for Kamala and for Hillary, but you try to be a straight shooter, which I appreciate. You'll give him give him something. I don't like to hand it to him, even. You know what I mean? Like I'm reluctant. I'm reluctant
fine,
to be.
Right?
It's like that old drill meme. I'm issuing a correction. You don't got to hand it to the terror group ISIL. I feel that way about Trump. But how about you? What kind of report card would you give him right now? Across economy, foreign affairs, et cetera.
So look, when I was campaigning for Kamala, we said we were going to shut down the border effectively, right? And we talked about how the new plans from Biden had reduced the numbers so that they were lower than Trump in his final month, et cetera. He's done it. He shut down the border, and so he deserves credit for that. He said he was going to change the conversation on DEI. I don't think he understands what DEI is. And so I don't know how much he's actually changed other than a lot of copy pasta and search and replace. And obviously there's been times when, there's been economic impact where programs have had to be shut down. But I think generally across the country, I don't think he's had dramatic changes on corporations, but he's done what he said he's going to do. Right.
Yeah,
so
no Harvey milk on the boat anymore. Sorry, Harvey. R.I.P.
No. Yeah. And so third, I say deportations. He's done it wrong, but he's done it. I think we get confused a little bit on deportations because he puts everything on tape and he makes everything an event, which amplifies it. But at least the last numbers I saw, he wasn't deporting as many people as Joe Biden.
I think that's changing a little bit the last couple of weeks.
Well, I think he's tried to make it seem like it's changed, right? And he's certainly done a lot of high profile attempts at deportations for sure. But then he walked it back. I mean, where the greatest numbers were, farmhands, working in service.
Part of the reason that is though, just to be technical, because part of the reason, because this is important, the deportation thing is very important to me. So I just part of that is because Joe Biden gets credit for he didn't shut down the border the first 3 years, right? So some people are coming across the border, then they're getting turned right back around. So that's a one. That counts as a one. And that number, right? So now Trump has fewer, but he's doing more of the raids of random businesses and people that have worked here a long time.
So no, look, when I was out there for Kamala and I talked to businesses, and I would say, do you want somebody walking in the door asking you for all your I-9s and then going in and then taking those phone numbers and showing up at people's homes, and we're going to have Elian Gonzalez day in and day out. So he said he was going to do that, and he's done it. I don't say that I'm agreeing with it, but he's doing it, right? And I think he's made a lot of mistakes in his approach, et cetera. But then again, he walked it back. And the numbers show, at least prior to that he wasn't even hitting Biden numbers, which obviously freaks Stephen Miller out a lot. So that's three. Number four is what he's done on crypto and with the SEC. And I'll separate those two, right? Crypto, put aside his grift, right? That's ridiculous. The Trump meme coin, literally when that Trump meme coin came out, I emailed the CEO and the people I knew at Coinbase and said I was embarrassed to be a customer of Coinbase because they were trading it. He's allowed to do a meme coin. More
the sponsor of the military parade, you mean
Coinbase?
Coinbase?
Yeah, those guys.
Military parade?
Yeah, those guys, right? You got to kiss up to the audience of one. So, but that said, I am a fan of crypto, and I think there is utility for it. But how Trump has done it with the meme coin is ridiculous. but that's only one. That's a 4A, I guess. 4B is the SEC. The SEC was a mess. And, I truly believe Gary Gensler cost Kamala the election, but that's a different
I want to come
conversation.
back to both
But
of those. Yeah.
Sure. But just generally, the way the SEC has historically done business, and look, they came after me for insider trading. I beat them in about 3 hours in a trial. Literally, in the time it took for lunch, that was it. But their whole spiel has been you litigate to regulate, meaning you don't tell anybody what the rules are, but if they believe you broke the rules, then they're going to sue you anyways, which is wrong. And this guy and Kamala, when I was out campaigning with her and with talking to Doug about it too, Kamala's a smart lawyer, and we had this conversation. You need bright line rules in the SEC so people know what they can and can't do when it comes to starting or running any business. Bright line rules, I think, will reduce the number of infractions and lawsuits because people know what they can't do. The new approach, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So those were his wins.
Let's hear about the negatives. Where do you give him some L's?
Oh my God, just no leadership, no ability to make a decision, still listens to the last person he talked to, is excluded from the big boy conversations. The list is long.
How about your wheelhouse? I mean, because to me, it's like, look.
He doesn't understand tariffs, but,
I just look at it a whole picture. And what you're doing is he's putting together this bill on the Hill that's going to raise interest. I think this is, I appreciate it. And I wonder your take on this. Because the first term, he did some pretty traditional Republican economics and took a lot of credit for it and pretended like it was his magic business apprentice skills. But it was like kind of the same policies that Jeb would have
101,
done, right?
Yeah.
This time it's different. And the environment's different because of interest rates and a bunch of other stuff globally. So we've got a debt-busting bill that's going to increase everybody's interest rates, combined with tariffs that is going to increase everybody's costs, combined with deportations and a culture of fear that is going to affect the workforce. Like, you combine all that shit together, and I mean, people are like, it feels kind of status quo-y to Biden, except for in certain industries, like right now in people's lives every day. But I think it's going to start feeling worse for people not too long from now.
But already is starting to feel worse, right? I think you're going to there's two economies in the United States right now. There's all the small towns and cities and states. They're getting torched. Everything that they
forgotten man, you mean? His people?
The forgotten man, exactly. The real people that, working on farms, the people who do beef, that do cattle in Nebraska. All the states that have to balance their budget now find themselves short because of all the Doge cuts or all the office closings or the people that are laid off. They're all in deep shit. Like, one of my fun pastimes is to look at small town newspapers. So like, I'll get the Parkersburg Sentinel, I forget what it's called, and I'll just go reading through it because they'll write about the things that are impacting their local community. And I want to understand where the impact that Doge is having or is not having, just to check my whole card. And literally, the Daughters of American Revolution Museum type thing, that money that they got from the states, gone. Right, the buildings that housed, Social Security, or in Parkersburg, West Virginia, it's a town of 29,000, and there's the Treasury group there that has 2,000 employees, and at least 125 have been fired. But all these small towns, particularly red towns, are decimated, and it's only going to get worse. And I think they're going to have the hardest time with all the economics. And even from a tariffs perspective, when something goes up in cost and you have to ship it to a small town, it's a lot more expensive to ship it to a small town. So they get double whammy. Whereas the blue towns that are the bigger, more urban and consolidated cities, they're going to get hit less. New York, LA, right? They'll have an impact there, but it's not going to be nearly as bad as the small towns.
I want to do a little bit of going back, unfortunately. You mentioned Kamala a couple times as if you were in the room. And so I'm going to start here with just a little gossip at first. There was some green room gossip at MSNBC. You ready for this? You ready? I wouldn't tell you this if it wasn't pretty good. Like, somebody I kind of trust said that they asked you to send in VP vetting papers and you said, no, the list would be too long. Is that true? It is true. Why didn't you consider? I mean, you ended out there campaigning with their advisor.
Well, the second part of that, my response was, I'm not very good as the number two person. And so the last thing we need is me telling Kamala, the president, that no, that's a dumb idea, right? And I'm not real good at the shaking
All
hands and
right.
kissing
Well, I don't know
babies
about that, man. I was talking to Pete Buttigieg a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I want to, give you a time machine. We're gonna go back in a DeLorean. Like, what could we do different? So I want to ask you that same question, but also in the context, like, if it was you instead of Tim Walz, who the hell knows? I don't know. It feels maybe different.
I mean, obviously, it would have been different. My personality is completely different than Tim's. My experiences, my backgrounds are completely different. I think I cut through the shit more directly. I'm not a politician, and so it would have been different, but it would have been awful. She would have fired
It would
me
have been
within
better
6
than
days.
present situation,
Well, yes, that's true, but I really thought she was going to win.
Here's
either
why.
way.
Here's why I want to pick on that, and I know you don't want the clip here. You're like, we would have won if Mark Cuban was VP, and I get that.
Right, of course.
And I don't even know if I believe that, but maybe I think it would have been meaningfully different in a way that, like, picking Josh Shapiro or whatever wouldn't have been meaningfully different in a way that's kind of hard to predict. But I was listening to you today with my man Theo Vaughn, my fellow Louisiana podcaster, and you did 2 hours with this dude, and I listened to all of it on 2x speed, and I'm like, it's hard for me to.
Which might have been the most crazy experience ever, because Theo at 1x speed is crazy.
It's wild. He's like asking about porn and gay stuff, and like then you get into politics, and he's all over the map. But like at the end of the 2 hours, it's still hard for me to understand why he's for Trump. Like there's no real substantive thing.
He's gangster. He's gangster, baby. That's what he said, right? Yeah, his vibes. He's gangster. But most people just want to live their life. They want to get up in the morning with a smile and not be stressed. In my mind, the number one job of any candidate, and this is where Trump has spectacularly failed, the number one job of any president should be to reduce the stress of the people of the country.
Well, that's not working so far.
There's only one.
At least for me.
No. There's only one thing we all share, and that's our president. Everything else is unique to us, or unique in 1,000 different ways. But the president is the one thing we all share. And having somebody who communicates trust and hope and reduces people's stress is critical. But the point being, is relating it back to Theo, and it's not his job to think about all that shit. They're not going to think, about. They're not going to think pragmatically about what's best for me and what's best for the country. And that's what the Democrats have to learn. People just want to get through shit and get to the game. Like, who's going to win tonight? Like, am I going out to get drunk? Where are my boys at tonight? Who's playing who and what's
We're going to talk about how gay the Roman Empire was, and like whether if you get rich enough, you get bored with straight sex, whatever other random shit he wants to talk to you about. Here's the thing, though. I'm not critical of Theo. I wish we lived in a world where every single person with a platform thought a little bit more deeply about policy. I've had a chance to meet him, and
they're not going
I wish that, but we don't. We live in the world we live in, and the thing that's actually important about that observation you just made is that I came away from that thinking basically he just wanted a guy that wasn't he's not ideological. A lot of the Democrats look at all of that and they're like, they're racist, they're conservative, we're not gettable. And this dude, it really much came down to he didn't want somebody that was a politician. Trump's vibes are a little more gangster. He doesn't like getting his finger wagged at. And that might be shallow, but that's also gettable. That makes them get. And so that's why I'm if Cuban was on that ticket, they're gettable, right?
They're all gettable, right? Look, Rogan, Theo, the Pauls, the Nelk boys. I've been all but Rogan. I've been on. They want to talk about sports. They want to talk about girls. They want to talk about getting fucked up. They want to talk about gambling, right? They don't want to talk about politics. 99% of people in this country do not want to talk about politics on a day-to-day basis. And in fact, they're trying to get away from it. So if you're going to try to connect to them, you've got to connect to them on a human level. You can't talk ideologies. You can't ask for ideological purity. You can't extrapolate every single piece of shit that happens and say, now this is going to happen all the time everywhere. That's not how most people think.
So now this is the part that makes me want to pull my hair out about them, though. Because when you get to the policy, it's most of them are for Bernie healthcare stuff, totally vibing with your cost plus drugs reform stuff, which we'll talk about, against the Iran war that Trump might be getting us into right now, right? And so on policy stuff, on immigration stuff, they're pretty reasonable.
So what does that mean? What does that mean? It means we don't know how to sell. Well, I told this to Kamala. I told it to Tim. I told it to the people around Kamala. Our problem isn't our policies. Our problem is how do we sell them, right? How do we make people feel comfortable with what we believe so that they will at least absorb it and understand that that there's something in it for them. It's just like our lives that we live on a day-to-day basis. The things that we eat, the things that how we look at our health have all changed. They've changed, and over time, these things have been, communicated and sold to us in different ways, and we've evolved. The Democrats have not evolved. The Republicans have evolved. There is no more Republican Party. It's the Trump family business, and Trump has always been a salesperson. And Trump understands that if you make people feel envious of some other group, and then in turn you shit on that other group that they're envious of, you can sell them pretty much anything.
Okay, so there's another group of people you hang with that I do have a little more contempt for than the Theos of the world, and that's the rich guys.
I don't hang with motherfucking rich guys.
You don't? Okay, well, whatever. You know rich guys better than me, then. I don't get to talk to rich guys. You talk to rich guys sometimes, at least. Maybe you don't hang with them.
Rarely.
You at least hear from them. Like, I just feel like a lot of what you guys do, in an investing class and all that it's risk assessment, right? There's risk assessment as a central part of all this. And I just, for the life of me, can still not wrap my head around the failed risk assessment from these guys
on Trump versus Biden / Kamala. Okay, I'll explain it exactly. So even when I was out there trying to talk about cost plus drugs, and I went to the White House and I met with Ron Klain a little bit for a few minutes, and then I wanted to meet with Biden. He wouldn't meet with me. Every single I wouldn't say he wouldn't. He couldn't. Maybe it was just couldn't. But put me aside. Maybe I don't rank, right? But every single business person that I've spoken to said the same thing, that they wanted to get time with Biden and couldn't do it. And whether it was about AI, whether it was about crypto, whether it was about other businesses, even Elon, when they were talking about EVs, he couldn't get in the room. So their first initial response is, this guy doesn't like us. So then the question comes, Biden or Kamala versus Trump, right? The response as it applies to Trump, because I was like, I know this guy, right? I did a podcast with Vivek where I said, Vivek, this guy underpaid invoices. Would you ever underpay invoices? No.
Well, Vivek might, but okay, that's neither here nor there.
No, Vivek wouldn't. Like, I may not agree with him policy-wise, but he's not like that. But in any event, like I use the example because that's when not long after the trials in New York were happening, and Michael Cohen was talking about how Trump underpaid invoices, and he was proud of Michael when he did the same thing. I'm like, I thought when Michael said that shit, maybe, when he'd have his, little stand-up press conference after the each day's hearing, that he would say, of course I paid everybody. No, right? And all these business guys, I would say, character is destiny. Character is destiny. This is what you're going to get. And they're like, they would always go back to his first term. But he didn't do any of these things in the first term. He didn't do this, and this. And we have no reason to expect that he would change dramatically and do anything differently than the first term. Obviously, that was wrong, but that was their logic.
Okay. That was not satisfying to me. It might be true, but it wasn't satisfying. It's like, Biden won't meet with me. Oh, I'm a master of the universe.
Okay, well, let me give you another perspective.
Trump's a moron.
Let's talk about
walked into any of those guys' boardrooms 10 years ago and was like, will you give me $50 million? He would have been laughed out of. Mark Andreessen would have laughed him out of the office.
Okay, so let's take it one step further, right? So let's talk about them showing up at the inauguration and giving all that money. Why? Right? And I'm going to tell you exactly why. We are in a zero-sum game with artificial intelligence. These companies, these 5, 6, 7 companies are spending $60 to $100 billion a year so that they can potentially win AI. You know who had no interest in talking about that or dealing with that? Joe Biden. I tried to get Kamala more pushing it, and she did. But by that time, it was already too late. They were already all in. And so if you're in a position, Tim, where you just spent $60 to $100 billion and the requirement so that one guy with one pen can't fuck you over and end that $60 to $100 billion is you have to kiss the ring. if the Democratic Party said, you know what, we've got this asshole Republican who'll switch. If Tim Miller goes and kisses the ring and shows up at, you're doing it.
Well, I'm not doing it. I've got a great life at my home
game.
in New Orleans, but I hear you. Most people are doing it. I'm happy in my little studio.
Most people are doing it. No, but you know what I'm saying, though, right? Because
I do.
It is a zero-sum game.
I want to get to the AI thing next. It was literally the next thing on my list, but I just want to push back on one more element of it. Okay, I don't agree with it or endorse it, but I get it in the period between him winning and Inauguration Day. That last 2 months, though, it's just like, you look at this guy, I mean, forget going into Andreessen Horowitz. If he showed up on Shark Tank for a crossover episode,
it'd be over.
It's just like, this is ridiculous. Like the downside risk, the tail risk of giving him, and imagine when he's 82.
But what are you going to do? How do you change it?
Okay, they could have done what you did. I guess this is my question. Why is it just, I literally would say this to Nicole Wallace, who'd be off air, and I'd be like, why is it Liz Cheney and Mark Cuban and you and me? Like, where is everybody else? Why didn't they do anything?
I don't need anything from them. I mean, they literally have hundreds of billions of dollars at risk. The future of their companies that they've spent their entire lives building is at risk. Okay. That's why.
All right. You're kinder to him than I am, which is nice. That's a good instinct. I want to ask you about the AI shit stuff. This is another thing you're more optimistic about than me. And there's an alarming AI story I want to get to, but I want you to do a bull pitch for me on AI first before I get to the alarming stuff.
I'll tell you what I tell every kid. I wish I was 16, because the tools that AI provide any 13, 14, 15, 16, 20, 25, 30-year-old kid to go out and start a business are amazing. That it's like having every professor, every library, every mentor, every consultant available at your fingertips to go out and do whatever it is you want. If you didn't graduate from high school, if you never even sniffed a community college, if you're willing to spend time with all these new AI tools that are changing by the minute because you have the time and the interest to do it, you are going to have the most significant job advantage, competitive advantage, entrepreneurial advantage. This is such a unique time in history when it comes to enabling young kids to do unique things. We've never seen anything like it. And if you believe in Gen A and Gen Z and what they're able to do for the future, put aside, our age, my age, right? If you believe in them and what they're able to do, I think it's just going to be incredible.
I do believe in them. I worry, though, about just even the widening gap that we have now. Like, look, I got a 7-year-old. I hear you, man. Like a 16-year-old who's somebody that's a self-starter, who's curious, who's interesting, and on the best time in the world, right? A 16-year-old who's lonely, who doesn't know what to do with themselves.
Now you've got someone to talk to. Now you've got something to talk to.
Mark, that's very concerning. That's not a real conversation.
No,
that's not a real.
It is okay,
though.
but right. So having access to a therapist,
not a real
on
therapist,
a marginal smartphone. Read some of the research now in terms of how kids look. There are risks, right? There's been a kid who killed himself, right? There's been kids who get too in connected to it. So it's pick your poison. Do you want a kid who's isolated with nobody to talk to at all, with no access to therapy? Now that's a different problem and a different issue we might be able to solve in another way by getting
maybe want them at the pool,
or having
them at the local pool. I want them at the community pool instead. Can I pick option 3?
Well, that's a whole different thing. Well, no, option 3 is going to ChatGPT or Perplexity and says, I need a workout program and I need a social program. Yeah. So the point being that we have a lot of social problems across the entire spectrum of people, every city, every demographic, right? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, we can talk about what are the paths we can take to try to to solve those problems. And all the ones that don't involve AI are incredibly expensive, incredibly people intensive, and really difficult to implement in any political environment. But on the other hand, what we're talking about are the frailties of AI that's relatively new. And so can we get accomplished therapists, accomplished psychologists, accomplished sociologists to produce models that are trusted because they define the models? I think the misperception that we have is that there's going to be this one big AI model. That's not going to be the case. Those people who are spending the $60 to $100 billion a year, they all have to compete. And each of those is not going away. But more importantly, there are going to be millions of models. There's going to be millions of things and apps where you can say the therapist you wish you could have gone to, like this was the perfect therapist for you or your child. That therapist will have a model. And that model will have the guardrails that you'd want that they would use in a face-to-face conversation. And if hopefully there's a reasonable price, then you can use have a telehealth moment where they talk to them. AI will make that better, not worse.
Okay, let's there's a key word that you had in there, guardrails, because I do want to talk about this, because I would have had we done this, I mean, this would have been a dream for me in 2007. So I would have been a pig in shit and not had the balls to push back on you. But in 2007, I would have agreed with you. I'd have been like, because I was like South by Southwest kid, very excited about all these new social apps, and I've got 18 years of experience now, and all of the cool stuff about the social web that I was promised. We got some of them.
Now. We
got some of them.
Totally different though.
But
totally different.
Okay, but part of that was because there wasn't a lot of smart regulation. These boomers on the Hill did not did let these guys kind of do whatever they wanted. And now you're telling me, well, what the AI gazillionaires, the wannabe trillionaires that are doing this AI, what they want right now is a president who won't do anything, who won't put any limits on them, any regulation. That concerns me a lot, given our experience in the last little round.
Right, and that's fair. But the question becomes, who are we competing with? What are the options available to us, right? And so, unlike most technologies historically, the U.S. has just dominated. Yeah. But now countries are starting to realize, France, the UK, China in particular, are realizing that, look, this is a race that might end up, creating some level of economic and military dominance. And we have to win the AI race. And they're not going to have any guardrails. Yeah. And so will there be some level of collateral damage? Yes. What it is, I don't know. Could it be worse than we ever expected? Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, right? But what's even worse is where we know there are no guardrails and nobody will attempt to create guardrails in other countries. And I'd rather have somebody who's living domiciled here, pays taxes here, whatever, has a business based here, where you can go after somebody when they've done some AI that, we don't think is acceptable at any level. If you just stop it before anybody gets to innovate, we're not good at determining where innovation will lead to. And that's the catch-22. Now, going to social media, where the algorithms have gone and the dominance by all these people who are rich, the good news is from AI is it's so much easier to create competitive applications and have different levels of communications. I think people are going to use social media less. And you're going to see, and I think a lot of this is just started. We should have regulated
the algorithms. Like you should have had a system where like you had to opt in to getting information instead of.
So I'll tell you an argument I got on Twitter, right? This was years ago. And I said we needed to use real names.
Yes, I've always been for that.
And but here was the argument against it, and it made me really think, right? Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. And so you pick your poison. And so, but now when with Elon owning Twitter and, Meta with Zuckerberg, and it's all self-enrichment and all that, the question becomes, what alternatives can you create? The good news is we may not have to create alternatives because AI, if you've seen all the AI generated videos that are popping up, they will dominate social media because everybody's trying to arbitrage the economics and make money from it. And so it's going to be really tough to know what's real and what's not real. And you may not need real people to create entertainment, which means that, no, don't do that, because that, in my mind, I think it's going to force more face-to-face communications. I did this thing. And,
I just love that in your pro pitch, it's like, it's going to be hard to tell what's real and what's not real. And that's in the positive pitch.
Well, yeah, but that is positive in some respects, right? Because it ends up being not a silver bullet, it's not the right term, but it's becomes so easy to overwhelm, to flood the zone, if you will, with stuff that isn't real. People are going to want stuff that is real, and we'll want more face-to-face communications. In business as well, when you get all these fake voices calling you as a sales pitch, it's like, if you're the company that has a salesperson that at least knocks on your door or shows up face to face, you're going to appreciate that. If you don't know what's real or not, you're going to want somebody telling it to your face so you know it's real and that you can trust it. I just had the same conversation with a bunch of doctors an hour ago. The number one business attribute is trust. For any app, for any business, you have to be able to engender trust. In an AI world, yeah, for sure, right? In an AI world, it's easier to do a lot of processes, but it's going to get harder and harder to get people to trust what you're presenting because the pedigree is uncertain. The background is uncertain. So when you try to game all these things out and look at second, third, fourth order, right? I don't think it's as bad as you think because there's so much competition. And I think there's a positive to it, but I understand the risk.
One more on the risk. No, because here we go. I haven't even got you to the thing that prompted this topic. OpenAI, in a press comment yesterday, they cautioned that upcoming models will carry a higher level of risk when it comes to the creation of biological weapons, especially by those who don't really understand what they're doing. It's not a great. That's not a great warning sign. Like on the cigarette pack, it's like might get lung cancer. On OpenAI, it's like maybe a random teenager will create a biological weapon. That's a little concerning.
Yeah, it's like a cigarette pack saying when you light this, it might have a blast radius of 2 miles, right? No, there's look. Like I said, there's going to be unintended circumstances. There's going to be collateral damage, just like there are on the internet. Remember when the internet first started hitting? It was like, let's see if we can look up how to make an atom bomb, right? And so, yes, all those things. And I would be shocked that OpenAI didn't put guardrails because it's easy to say bomb and da-da-da-da-da. But it makes for a great way to sell yourself and get everybody talking about you. Because look at what Gemini is. And the difference between Gemini and ChatGPT is Gemini, the guardrails are too extensive, right? It's like Gemini is boring, whereas ChatGPT kisses your ass too much, right? And and so they've all made choices, but they're in a death war, death not being literally, to see who's going to win market share. Right now it's ChatGPT, but they might be the IBM of AI models right now. We just don't know.
I want to go back to crypto really quick because I do think I'm so torn on this one because I agree with your kind of passing comment earlier that it really hurt the Democrats how hostile they were to crypto and Gensler, and I see it. Yeah, I see it in my life just anecdotally with random non-political friends. So I agree with that, and yet like crypto needs to be regulated and this bill that they put through Congress is not it. And I have friends that are in the crypto industry.
Yeah, but that's only really for stable coins. I know. Yeah, that was only pretty much for stable
So they
coins.
get mad at me. I get friends that are at Coinbase at these other platforms. They get mad at me for my comments on this, and I'm like, and they're like, well, there's some really legit. Bitcoin is legit. The X is legit. Y is legit. And I'm like, okay, but if you walked into Walmart and it was like 3 aisles were legit products, and then like 27 aisles were total scams.
Well, no, okay, but let's take what you're saying. Go to Amazon. Right. So one of my big things that I pushed and I tried to get Kamala, but it was too esoteric, is all the knockoffs on Amazon. Like a bunch of my Shark Tank companies, period. It shows on Shark Tank. They're already on Amazon. Boom, in come the Chinese knockoffs. And you probably don't know this, but if you're a Chinese company and you want to sell on Amazon, you don't have to have any nexus in the United States, meaning there's no paperwork you have to fill out. You don't have to have a domestic location. There's no proof that you file taxes on anything you make. You can just come in and fuck over as many American companies as you want. So to your point that even in real life products, there's scams left and right. And that's a whole lot more expensive than even the crypto. Now, I get the Elizabeth Warren
just really
side.
quick though, like I hear you, and that's bad, and we should have rules against the Chinese knockoff guys. But like, it's the business person that's getting screwed over in that case. Like in the crypto coin case, it's the
people. No.
Getting a product,
it's him walking in. No, it's Tim walking in and thinking he's buying Dude Wipes, one of my Shark Tank companies, and it says Dude.
Oh yeah, wipe with a 3 or whatever. Yeah,
and you don't know the difference.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah, so you don't know the difference. So because if they weren't selling anything, or
I thought you were saying they were just making a cheaper knockoff brand version of it, but no, they're literally copying.
No, they are. Yeah, they're literally copying it and making a knockoff, and they're outselling the Shark
That's
Tank
bullshit.
companies, and some of those Shark Tank big companies have gone out of business, right?
Well, I did
So
at
your
least get my
analogy, I'm just
Chinese
giving you,
wipes though, whereas the people invested in Melania coin just lost their fucking ass.
but it's their lottery ticket, right? I hate meme coins. I hate them. I hate them, right? I think they're the scum of the crypto earth, right? It's a problem. I don't think they should exist. But the people who love them look at it as a musical chairs lottery ticket. That if you know how to play the
But we've
game,
got
you
rules on
can
the
make
lottery,
money out of
man.
it.
Steve Wynn and those guys. You want to get in the casino
I'm not
business? You
arguing with
can't
you.
just
Like
like
I,
have a lottery where everybody loses.
no, I
You
agree
know?
with you. I hate
Yeah.
meme coins. That's
But
what
we
I
have
just said.
rules, so we got to
I
have
would have
rules,
no
right?
problem.
Yeah.
I agree, right? I'd have no problem outlining meme coins. Now, the crypto people would hate me, right? And they do hate me because I'm not purely libertarian on it. But I think to evolve from that pure libertarian history of crypto to get it to where it's more mainstream and easy for grandma, which we failed at miserably so far. Look, let me say it differently. There's been things that have worked really well with crypto and things that have failed miserably. And things that should have worked well have failed miserably. Things like smart contracts on Ethereum to create, applications that truly have utility. That should have been way further ahead than it is. And the reason it's not is because Gary Gensler made it impossible to follow the rules. Now, that's not the same case in other countries, so a lot of companies left. But when you look at the grifts, like the meme coins, like the Melania and Trump coins, that's just a grift. And there's just no other way to put it. And either you pay a whole lot of tax to grift people, that there's rules, there's regulations. I agree with you
Do
100%
you worry
there.
about paranoid Tim's coming in now? Do you worry about the Thiel, like the idea that they're trying to move us off of fiat currency altogether and the risk associated with that? Does that worry you at all?
Yeah, there certainly is risk, right? Because I forget the name of it, but I lost money 15 years ago with this, not a bond, but it was RI something that said it was backed by the
Yeah.
dollar and it would never break a dollar until it did, right? In like 2008. And this was a regulated thing. So there is that risk for stable coins. And I think you've got to really, the Genius Act was a first step, but it's not the last step. I don't
Do you
think
like
people
the
are
Genius
going
Act?
to take it. I thought it was a good first step just so we can start making the point that crypto can be
Yeah, got it.
regulated. And so, because it won't be the last regulation. But to your point, is Thiel trying to undermine the US dollar? I don't think so, right?
Are
I
you
think he
100%
knows that
sure?
there's too much to lose.
Yeah,
No, I'm
right.
not. Obviously, nothing about Peter Thiel am I 100% sure
Yeah.
about, right? I've only met the guy once, but at the same time, that undermines the entire economy, and that does no good
Yeah.
for anybody.
That circles me back to the Trump point, I guess. This is my whole thing with the Trump point the whole time is like, he obviously was going to be bad for the economy. To me, like it was obvious, like his stated plans were all very risky.
I
Yeah.
agree with you. I agree with you, right? I mean, all the things I said when I was out for Kamala turned out to be
Yeah, right.
100% true, right? I was up. I betted 100, and I would tell people this, and they were like, "But he didn't do it
Yeah.
before.
First time.
He didn't
This is
do
why
it
it's
before."
my people.
Tariffs,
It's
right?
Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan's fault. It's my people for jamming through the traditional
Right.
Chamber of Commerce Republican agenda and letting him brand it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say it again, character's
Yeah.
destiny. Donald Trump is a great marketer, great salesperson. And like a lot of salespeople that I've dealt with, he cares more about closing the sale and saying he closed the deal than following through to make sure the service is
Cost
delivered.
plus drugs. How would you fix the healthcare system? Easy question. You have 2 minutes.
Oh, I only got 2 minutes, right? Well, first, what is cost plus drugs? You go to costplusdrugs.com and you put in the name of your medication. Let's just say you have cancer and you need a Matnip, right? If this was 4 years ago, you'd walk into a big pharmacy and that Imatinib would cost $2,000 plus. Now you go to costplusdrugs.com, you put it in, we show you our actual cost. What we pay for it shows up. We show you our markup. It's only 15%. If you want it via mail order, we have a pharmacist review it for $5 and $5 for shipping and handling, and that's it. And so you know exactly what it's going to cost you for any of your medications. And we've helped millions of people and saved, I don't even know how many lives, and helped however many families. So that's part one. Part two, how do you fix healthcare, right? First is transparency. That's a big part of it. But part two is you look for the leverage points in healthcare because that's what fucks it all up. When you think about healthcare, it's really simple, right? You go to the doctor either says you need something or you don't. If you need something, then there's only two questions. What's it cost and how do you pay for it? That's it. The problem with healthcare isn't the doctors or even the hospitals. It's what we charge and how we ask people to pay for it. And a big part of that problem is because of how the whole system is set up. If you think about healthcare plans, whether it's ACA, whether it's Medicare Advantage, whether it's Medicare Part D, you've got some, or for your company, right? You've got some insurance company that's saying, look, here's the plan. We're going to change it every year. Here, we're going to have one plan that has a low premium, high deductible, and another plan that has a low, high premium and low deductible. And young people, the people with less money, always choose the high deductible and hope they don't get sick, right? But what they don't tell you is, one, they set the deductible so high, given that, most of America can't afford $400. There ain't no fucking way they can afford to pay their deductible. Now, you know who loses that money when they can't afford to pay their deductible? It's not the insurance company. It's not the company that you're getting your insurance from. It's not the ACA plan. It's the fucking hospitals and doctors that they've turned into prime lenders,
Right.
the guys who'll have to take on any risk. And so because of the plans that the insurance companies have designed where they don't pay any attention or give a shit if the people can afford the deductibles that they sign up for, and the government hasn't figured out yet that we've got to guarantee it. Like we can't do single payer right now. What are your feelings on single payer?
No, insane.
Or,
to the idea that we could afford that. I liked there was a Ryan, I think it was Ryan Wyden. It was an old Paul Ryan thing, which will trigger some of the progressive listeners, but it was basically just like a public option for like low income. It's like a Medicaid thing, and it was scaled up. And like the higher you
and we
go
got
up there,
that, right? We kind of got that with Medicaid, right?
It's sort of a
So
scaled
first
up
on
version of
Medicare
it,
for all.
Up then.
Yeah, first thing in Medicare for all. If you read like Congressman Jayapal's Medicare for All proposal, the first thing it says is this shall be run and organized by the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Insane. So RFK Jr.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah, I mean, like the whole thing is insane.
That's all you need to know, right? But here's the thing, right? If we introduce transparency, just say like cost plus, everything was transparent, right? Then you could have cities, states, counties, and say, look, here's our budget. And if we know exactly what it's going to cost, and we can use scientists to extrapolate the data to figure out what our annual budget should be, then it can start just like Canada started their care programs. Because that's what Canada did. Like in 1947, one of the, Ottawa, one of the provinces just said, look, we know what it's going to cost. We think we can cover it. But you can't do that in the United States of America until you're transparent about all the costs. And if you start doing that, the two problem children are the insurance companies and the PBMs, because they have all the leverage, right? The PBMs control the formularies for 250 million lives, and the insurance companies that own the PBMs control the plans, the insurance plans for just as many lives. And so they have all the leverage. If you, divorce formularies from PBMs, they lose that leverage, and you don't need them for formulas anyways. And so it goes down to a direct cost. And if you're transparent on that, and the same thing on healthcare, if you simplify the payment terms, all of a sudden you can get to single payer, but it's on a municipality, county, employer, or whatever.
Yeah. I'm going to make a hard turn.
Did I do that in 2 minutes?
No, it was 3, but that's okay. I'm making a hard turn from. It was pretty good, man. Healthcare is the hardest one. You asked me like, what do I think about the social life? My honest opinion about healthcare is that like it seems like our current system is the worst of both worlds. like a more free market system with a big safety net for like catastrophic would be better.
But we don't have
socialized would be better. Yeah. Like our system is like it's taking the worst of both of the combos. I'm making a hard turn into Bluesky. This started because you DM'd me and you're like, why aren't you on Bluesky? My response to you was like, number one, I like fighting, as you can tell right here, and I don't want to be in a bubble just because I enjoy fighting.
Yep.
And number two, like bubbles feel toxic, and like the types of fighting that happen in bubbles is not the type I like, and like people are nitpicking me all the time, and I'd rather be going across, ideological perspectives and
cross the line.
And like that's my issue with it. 2 months later, because it's taken us a while to make this happen, you skeeted basically my critique of Bluesky. So where are you at? You welcome aboard, but where are you at on it right now? What's the solution?
I'm disappointed, right? It didn't have to be that way. They took the path of not trying to bring in new users that have different viewpoints. They knew that they had a big base of users that wanted ideological purity. They knew it, right? I've talked to them. and they started to bring in a couple verticals. Like the NBA's got a great vertical. Econ Sky is really good. Book Sky rather is really good, right? But they made no effort to go bring in other people. It's not too late. I actually just wanted to kick them in the ass, right? Because it's disappointing. To your point, I want to fight with the people who disagree with me, and I want to have in-depth conversations to see if I can change their minds or they can change mine.
I don't want to have smarmy Vice President JD Vance going on just to be a dick about it, really.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did though. Why not? He set himself up. I love that.
He's really smarmy about it though, right?
So what?
So it doesn't just like, I know, so it just doesn't like, it's like, ugh, like, it wasn't a real attempt to engage though. It's just a douche.
No, of course not. Yeah, of course. And I even quote tweeted him and quote tweeted him and said, "You're lying," right? When he talked about pharmacies paying for I forget what it was, but I just quote tweeted him and said, "You're lying, right? I don't believe you." And that's fine. I want that opportunity no matter what the platform, because if you do it on Twitter, your replies are just going to get destroyed for a month.
Right, we're going to close with rapid fire NBA, but just first I have to do it. So I'm not going to ask you the obvious question, like, because I know that you're going to duck it. I know you're going to duck it.
I had nothing to do
or the two obvious questions. But before I get to either of them, it's like, so what % chance are you going to run for president? I know you're not going to say you're going to. 0. Is it 0? It's not 0.
0.
It's 2%.
0.
0.0? Nil?
0. My family, my wife repeats that because, like, there was the Bloomberg article that just came out and asked the question, and someone sent it to her, and then she saw it. And she's like,
"What was the Dumb and Dumber thing?
Right?
You're not even going to be like you're saying there's a chance, 1 in 100,000.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Nothing.
No. Okay, so I'll say it's not 100% 0. If all of a sudden Trump was on the ballot for a third time. Okay. Right?
What if it's his kid? What if it's JD and Don Jr.? That's not enough to get you off the couch?
No.
All right.
No.
I think you're lying. Here's why I think you're lying to me. I think you're an honest person, but you showed up at the dorkiest Never Trumper conference in DC where the Proud Boys came and protested us, made it kind of interesting. I love the Principles First guys. They are great, but I'm like, only someone who at least thinks they might run for president would show up to this.
No, that wasn't it at all. It was the exact opposite. It was like, these people have no idea how to sell. They have no idea how to convince people who don't agree with them, right? It's easy to convince people in the church, right? Praise the Lord. We all agree. It's hard to convince people that the reason you like to go to Twitter, because it's more fun, but it's harder, right? You have to find a path in order to do it. That's why I do these things. I've done it for the Mod Squad and all these other groups, right? Because you've got to be able to tell them, you can't just say no to everything Trump does. That is not an approach, right? You've got, maybe it's this stop clock is right twice a day, but you've got to be able to say, okay, he was right on this. He was right on this. And you can't call people who support Trump a cult.
Well,
they're just
sometimes the truth is the truth.
No, okay, well, let's talk about that, right? So, like, one of my buddies, when Trump first ran, I was like telling him, because I've known Trump for 25 years. And I'm like, Dan, guys in the mid-50s, like, why? Like, let me tell you something, Mark. I've been voting for politicians my entire life. And you know what they've done for me? Nothing. You know the definition of insanity? Well, his mind. That's all that matters, right? It's all that matters.
Has he come around this? Trump's done nothing for him now?
No.
So it seems like he's in a cult.
But let's talk about
he hasn't come around yet. It's been 9 years. What has Trump done for him?
You're a white guy. You're a white guy in New Orleans, right? So just a random white guy in New Orleans. You think that because of DEI, you or your brother, or your uncle, your friend didn't get that promotion, right? So he said he was going to do something about DEI. In your mind, he did it. You have a cousin that works construction, right? He thinks that he's not getting higher paid jobs. Well, yeah, right. But he's thinking coming into all this, right? He's thinking, I'm not, these guys are on the corner and I'm not getting that work because these immigrants, right? So I want the border closed. Did Trump do it? Yeah. Now I want those guys deported. So maybe my wages might be a shittier job, but my wages are going up because of it. Did Trump do it? Yeah. So now tariffs, it's going to cost you more money. Yeah, maybe. But you know what? Those first three things that were important to me, bam, 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 Trump got it right. And so I'm going to give him the
Mark,
benefit of the
that
doubt
sounds
on
like
the
a cult
force.
to me, because it's like you could just be like, Barack Obama got you out of the Iraq War. Are you not happy about that? We got, what do you have a nephew that's gay?
But
We got
then.
gay
This
marriage
is now.
now. Joe Biden, you got a tax cut from George W. Bush. You could do this spin for anybody.
Of course, but this is the here and now, right? And that also is the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. The Democrats always extrapolate some anecdotal scenarios and say, see, he's done it this number of times, so he's going to do it all the time. I don't think Trump voters think that way. Trump voters look at it and say, this is me, this is now, this is what's affecting my life in a simple way, right? The Iraq War, maybe I had some family there and, they're out now. That's great. Maybe, we had the great financial mess and Obama helped fix it. Yeah, but I don't remember back that far, particularly, if I'm 70 years old, the average age of the Fox viewer, 75, the average age, I'm not hearing any of that shit from Fox, right? And if I'm going to an SEC school, if I'm going to LSU, right, I'm not hearing any of that shit, right? I'm hearing, all the, he fixed DEI, he, took care of immigration, deporting the guys who are keeping my buddies because I don't want to go to my buddies who don't want to go to college now. And so the point being is you have to recognize that's the reality. Like we did the Shark Tank thing and I went to LSU. No, it was Auburn. And it was like, oh my God, they were hating on me. Like they were like,
but you could handle it. You handled it. I'm sorry. You're.
Oh yeah, I don't give a shit, right? But it's it was just interesting to know, and so I really, really think that if the Democrats are going to understand why Republicans haven't just turned on Trump, like it makes so much sense to us that he should, you have to realize that he's batting 750 for most, particularly for white guys under the age of 50, right, or 55. He's doing exactly what he said. And unless you realize that, you have no way to change
have your
mind.
wife call me because I hear you on that. All right. Last thing. So, okay. These two rapid fire NBA. You realize that you leaving the Mavs caused a butterfly, it flapped its wings. Think about all the people you hurt. Everyone in Dallas, every Lakers hater, every tanking team that wanted Cooper Flagg. The Buss family is gone now. Jay Moore is a billionaire now because of you. Think about all of the impacts of that decision. What do you ever reflect on that? I mean, how insane is what happened?
I am one powerful motherfucker.
That was insane. You should have stayed. You should have either stayed or been Kamala's vice president. I do not like that.
I would have done it differently. In hindsight, I would have done it a lot differently. But
I got to do Nuggets, then we'll leave. We're in a pickle, man. I feel like we're like on the one hand, if we're one player, we took Oklahoma City to 7. We're one player away from being NBA champions right now. On the other hand, they got the cap, they got no cap space. They're stuck with all these. What do you do? And we don't have a GM. Well, A, isn't it insane we don't have a GM? And B, if you became the GM, what would we do? Help save the Nuggets.
Well, first of all, your former GM was Calvin Booth, who hit one of the biggest shots in Mavericks history. Second, why are you a Nuggets fan?
I grew up in Denver.
Oh, okay.
I live in Louisiana now. I grew up in Denver.
Okay. So the challenge for all teams right now is we're transitioning from the old CBA to this new CBA with the second apron, which isn't a hard cap, but it's pretty damn close. And so teams have to all adapt. The bad news is the good teams, it's going to be really hard to keep your good players. The good news is the bad teams are going to get better a lot faster because you're going to be able to get players for less and still stay under that second threshold. So I think for the Nuggets, they're going to have to draft really, really well. They're going to have to keep Russell Westbrook, and they need one more score. They need another
Michael
score.
Porter Jr. for two quarters for $1. The trade.
It was tough. He hurt his shoulder, man. You can't put it on.
I'm not putting it on him either. I'm just looking at our
hurt.
options. All right. I mean, Jokic is the best player in the NBA, right? Then we got a small window.
It's not close. Yeah, it's not close. Yeah. And you have a long window because it's not like he's super athletic. So he'll be able to be really good till he's 35, 36.
It's so beautiful watching him. It's unbelievable.
Oh, he's so amazing to watch. Unreal.
It's really been a joy of my life over this horrific political decade to have him.
You know what? Basketball is that, right? Ball is. Do you still hoop
I try. I'm not. I never was that good. I was always the nerd. I was the play-by-play guy for GW's college basketball team, so I was always more sidelines. But I do love it.
But still, that's not even the point. You don't have to be good, right? Just the feel of getting out there just solves
Yeah, I
all
get
the
out there with
world's
my daughter
problems,
a couple times a
right?
week. We go down to the park, and
Yeah,
it's awesome.
my son is 15 now, and he's taller than me. He could finally beat me 1-on-1, and it's the worst part of life ever because he talks shit. Like he'll have a ball, and even if he doesn't have a ball, he'll like do a spin move. Oh my god, he's just
Well,
killing
I'm going
me.
to
But
embrace it now because I'm
like,
still talking shit to my 7-year-old, making her cry after I win in horse, and I enjoy that. It's good. It's a good life lesson. All right. I'm not letting you win in horse.
but tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. Going out into the
Yeah.
backyard, a gym, wherever, and just making some shots and watching the ball go through the hoop
It's as good
solves
as it gets.
everything.
You're not wrong. Mark Cuban, I
Yep.
really appreciate you taking all the time, man. I really am.
It was
All
fun,
right. Come
Tim.
back another time.
I really
Everybody else
enjoyed
will
it.
see you back here on Monday. Peace.